Welcome to Trailblazers, where we explore the inspiring journeys of entrepreneurs and industry leaders who are redefining success and making a lasting impact. These game changers are driving progress in our region and around the world. I'm Melody Bradford, your host. Thanks for joining us for this edition of Trailblazers. Today we have Elaine Pivinski, and she is the owner of Franklin Hill Vineyards, one of the first wineries established in Pennsylvania, and it's known for their award-winning wines. She's a self-taught winemaker, a businesswoman, a philanthropist, an advocate for women, a self-proclaimed hippie, a breast cancer survivor, and best known by those that love her as Mama Grape. Oh, Elaine. How I love you. I'm so grateful for our friendship and for all that we've shared through the years. And Elaine, you have a fun story on how you got started. Can you share it with our listeners?
All you listeners, you owe me a thank you. And the reason I say that is when in the 60s, there was no Planned Parenthood or birth control. So we all got married at 18. You're welcome. I marched in 1974 because I felt that women weren't as fairly treated as we should have been. But anyway, we got married at 18. But at 19, I went to Woodstock.
Oh, wow.
And I married an architect's son from Montclair, New Jersey, thinking I'd have an easy life. Well, on our way home from Woodstock, my children's father said that he wanted to live on a commune. Oh. And here I am, 19 years old and in love. I don't share well. I'm greedy. I'm possessive. I don't take my clothes off. I don't belong in a commune. So how do you save a marriage? So we said, let's live off the land by ourselves. So we came to the Lehigh Valley in 1970, 71, looking for land, and we bought a beautiful little farm in Lower Mount Bethel Township. It was 35 acres and a house for $50,000.
Oh, my gosh.
But you're 19 years old and you don't have any money anyway. So my parents gave us the down payment, and here we were thinking we bought Colorado with all that land. And we didn't know what to do with it. So we wrote to Cornell University, and they suggested if I could wait 5 years, they'll have enough cuttings that we could put some of the first vineyards in the state of Pennsylvania. So by 1975, we were starting to plant our vineyard.
Oh, my gosh.
In Lower Mount Bethel.
Wow. So that must have been exciting, that call with Cornell, because they were like, okay, here, you have what you need. So
they were helpful.
Go ahead and start, right?
Right. No one else gave us that a lead. They didn't know how to tell us what to do with the land.
Wow. So you and your husband started this.
Yes.
Right? And did it take off? I mean, obviously you have what you have today, but tell me about that process. What did that look like?
Well, the beginning was a little hard, but this is for women to understand today. But women were not allowed to purchase land. We could not have a mortgage, nor could we have a credit card. It was always in the man's name. And I could remember distinctly when we signed that mortgage, and the man said my name wasn't going to be on it because it wouldn't change anything if my name was on it or off of it. So I felt he was convincing me not to put my name on the mortgage.
Oh, my gosh.
But because I didn't add anything or take anything away. Now knowing, I would have done differently. So, but that's the way you accepted it. I wasn't angry. It was just the way it was in the 70s. So going forward, we started putting in the vineyard, and our marriage started to fall apart in the early 80s. And the winery had already opened, very small beginning, maybe 3,000 gallons. Today I'm making over 80,000 gallons. So it was a very small beginning, and we sold out because we didn't know if people in the Lehigh Valley would drink. You know, I heard of different groups and, about alcohol, so we were very quiet. But we sold out in 3 months.
Oh, my
so
Lord.
We know that the Lehigh Valley loves wine.
Now, at this point, was the land still in your
husband's name?
Oh,
my children's father's name. So
how did you navigate that?
I know. This is the most, I don't know how I did it, but I'll give an advice to anyone. When he left and I was to stay behind with the children and to probably sell the property, I went to the bank because in those days there was no cell phone and no computers. So you went with a coupon book to the bank and paid your mortgage and your water bill and your electric bill or your telephone. So when I went there, I had never went to the teller. I always wanted to visit the man who signed the loans. And when I introduced myself, I showed him that that wasn't my name on it, but my name's Elaine Pivinski, and I'm doing all the work. And he was very interested. After about 9 months, me going in, demanding to see him every time I paid the mortgage, he'd say, I know, Elaine, I know you're doing all the work and all that stuff. But I had no way of showing him that I was doing all the work and paying the bills. So my break came in 1986. Ruth Bader Ginsburg made it unlawful not to allow women a mortgage, a credit card, and buying land without a man's signature. So I went to the bank and I said, you know my history. What do you think? And then I went to Farm Credit, which was a farm loan. And they said to me, I was the first female ever to get a sole proprietor farm loan at 16% interest. But I didn't know at that time what interest really meant. So I got land. I bought the mortgage. It was mine now. Mm-hmm. All those years of just paying the bill and building up the business and making it very viable in our Lehigh Valley, I owned it. And the first thing I did was reclaim my name. I got my name back. And I also made myself a female-run company.
That's awesome. So, I mean, wow. So you were sitting back and you were like, okay, here I am. I have this, business that continues to grow. But now you have 2 small children at the time.
Correct.
Right? What did you do with that? I mean, and how did you get through that period? And then you had people that reported to you that helped you run the vineyard, right?
Correct. Well, I'll start with my family. I always feel bad because my children, I always say I wasn't a great mother, which sounds funny for a woman to say who's supported women's.
It's honest.
But
yeah.
I wasn't a great mother because when the kids came home, I always had to work down at the winery. Luckily, the winery was on the same premise. But there was no phones that we have today. So the kids were up at the house, and I'd run up and check on them because we were pumping wine. And sometimes it took 8 hours, and you couldn't stop it because the pumps would burn out. So I would run up to check on them, run back down. I think I fed my kids on a lot of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches because I didn't really have time to do the cooking and do it. And that would be one of my sad regrets. But when I talk to my children about it today, and they're in their 50s, they always said, Mom, you always tried the best to make sure that we had what we needed. And I always say, I think I was a better father than a mother. Because a mother to me is a housekeeper in those eras. Mm-hmm. And a father was the money, and he made he had the job, and he went out every day. I was a great father. I don't know about a mother because cooking wasn't my favorite. I love it now, but not then because it took up too much time.
Right.
So it was hard. And then the workers were all girls on Franklin Hill Road. I would watch when they let their children get on the school bus. And if they went back in the house and it looked like they weren't leaving for work, I knocked on their door and asked them if they'd give me 2 hours, if they'd give me 4 hours, if they'd give me 6 hours a day. So I had the fabulous 5. Those were 5 of us that lived on Franklin Hill Road. And Bonnie Peischer was
still with you today, right?
Still with me today, 43 years later.
Way to go,
How
Bonnie.
many people stay for 43 years?
Wow.
And she's just as energized. She's brilliant. We call her the OG of winemaking.
Well, and she's the one that really has helped you to create some of those award-winning wines. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, especially the flavors. She has a great, great palate for flavoring and a nose. And she created wines in the 90s that were orange, royal blue, purple. We did all these fun things with flavorings, and she did such a great job. Right now we don't do that, but it was something that put us on the map.
Tell us about your parents, specifically your dad, and how his role in your life has influenced you. What role did he play in your life through all of this?
Well, I lost my mother early. I guess I lost her at 28 years old. So while we had the farm at the beginning, And it was very, very difficult to lose your mother. She was a stay-home mom. I always call my parents the Ozzie and Harriet Nelson, if anyone remembers that show, the perfect housewife and the man who went to the job. However, my father turned out to be the best mother in the whole wide world. He really kicked in, came up and watched the kids on weekends. We're from Fair Lawn, New Jersey. So he would drive every weekend and help me out, sleep on the couch with the kids. And then when my children's father left, he really, really gave them a lot of guidance. And I always say in life, sometimes you don't need a biological parent. You could just need someone who could fit that role. And even though my children, because their father left early in their life, they were in elementary school and junior high school, my father kicked in, and he was the best male representative. He was so loving and caring, and he helped me raise the children. So that was really nice to have him. But most of all, he helped me in the wine business. And I made a wine out of Concord, which is like Welch's grape juice. And my father would help me work at the stores, and he'd smoke Sir Walter Raleigh pipe tobacco, the worst in the world.
I love this story, by the way.
And yeah, the worst in the world. And he'd smoke in the stores. And I'd say, Daddy, please, please don't smoke. People don't like that. And he'd look at me with his big blue eyes and his Polish face, and he'd say, honey, I get compliments every day how great our winery tastes and smells because of me. And I went, ugh, I'd close my eyes and I'd take a deep breath. But he was free labor, so
Right.
I had to put up with him.
Right.
And he did that all the time. And he was so great with customers. And he was an older man, and he helped girls decide on wines for their wedding. I mean, he was just adorable. Then I noticed people started to come, because in those days, if we were the 6th vineyard in the state, there was like only 50 or 60 wineries at that time. So we were really busy. And this is in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000. And my father would wait on people, and everyone came in for Cabernets. They'd come in for trios. They'd come in for dry red wines. And my father would serve them Concord. And he'd serve them Concord to everyone. So I would take him in the back room and say, Dad, you can't sell Concord. That's a sweet wine. He'd pull his pipe out and look at me with those big eyes and say, they don't know the difference, you know, like that. And I just would close my eyes and sigh and say, geez, he's free labor. I've got to put up with it. But I found his secret when I watched him make all these sales, because he sold so much that I thought he was buying the wine, storing it in his basement so that his daughter could pay the bills. However, no, that wasn't the case. People would come in and say, hey, Walt, give me 2 cases of the Cabernet, give me 2 cases of Trio. He would say, give me 8 bottles of that S wine. And I'd laugh, and people would call it that. But meanwhile, they'd come back again, and once people got to taste that gorgeous Concord, they suddenly said, Walt, give me 3 cases of that Concord called Country Red. And he just grew that wine, that varietal so well that when he passed in the early 2000s, we renamed the wine Sir Walter's Red.
Oh, Sir Walter. And so is it still one of your top sellers?
The top seller. And you asked the right question. Aren't I lucky to be the age I am, to be able to talk about my father? But most important, my father's still making me money.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So if you went into the state store, which we are in now, I would say the top, they always have to post the top 10. And if I'm correct, the top 4 were like Almaden box wines and Black Box, and then Woodbridge Cellars, and then Gallo, and then, you know, it goes on and on. Number 10 is Sir Walter's Red still.
Wow.
So we work hard on that, and I'm very
That's
lucky.
exciting.
Yeah.
Were you ever scared? I mean, what was it like to grow a business, a vineyard, a farm, in the as a woman in the 70s, and eventually as a single mom?
I think I was. Now that I think, I know I was. And because the best thing that broke my fear or feeling that I got recognized in 2003, Governor Rendell ran a contest for the first time called Top 50 Women in Business. And it was all about someone nominating me from the Lehigh Valley. And they put my name in, and luckily I won it. And here I am. Am I the top 50 in the state? Absolutely not. But someone nominated me. So when I went there, I listened to all these women's stories. And none of them really started on their own. They were part of a bigger corporation, and they made money that way. But I sat there and I looked at it, and they asked a question to all of us. What motivated you to be who you are today, to get this award? And everyone said, as a child, I always wanted to travel and help this person out and help all that. And I got up there and I said, well, as a single mom, there's a coupon book on the 30th of the month, and that's what motivates me to keep working. I had a mortgage to pay, and some of those women didn't have mortgages. But I think I love working, and today, all these years, 47 years later, it gives me a purpose. I think the thing I try to mentor to everyone is that you have to be needed in life, and you have to have a purpose. Whether Franklin Hill Vineyards needs me or I need it, but it's working. Yeah. And everyone has to be needed, and that's what keeps us alive and keeps us up with the times.
Yeah. Tell us about what it's like running a family business and how your children have shaped you. What goes into that?
I always said every family-run business, and anyone who's listening can agree, you need a psychiatrist every week to break up the fights. It's a power struggle. And I learned early on with Adam that you have to let them have some freedom in the business, and you have to let them make decisions and fail. At the very beginning, I was so controlling, and that's the trouble with family businesses. The matriarch or the patriarch are so controlling, and the kids just have to listen to them. The minute Adam came to me and said, I'm smart, I can make good decisions, I want you to listen to me, all of a sudden I said, all right. And he did so much research and saved us a lot of money buying a filtration system. I was mad at him at first because this filtration system was almost $50,000. However, it was revolutionized winemaking and revolution freedom of time. And I always felt I have to listen to the younger staff, the younger people, and let them feel a part of the business. So, of course, I was fearful, but I think my strength of knowing I had bills to pay, and I loved what I was doing. And that's an important thing, to love what you're doing. You have to feel that you could wake up and you get excited about the day, or you have a purpose. If I wake up today and I have nothing to do that day, I'm scared then because I'm bored. Like, I think probably one of the questions you're going to ask me, some of my regrets.
Yeah.
And I think my regret is, number one, having the business and my home on the same property. Oh. Because it never gave me freedom. There was always 7 days a week, every day someone was on the farm. So I never had privacy. Or if I did have privacy, I felt guilty because people were working on my farm and I didn't have the right to not work. So that was a difficult problem, living where you work.
Living where you work, yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. And that was one of the things I regret, that I didn't. But on the other hand, when there is an emergency, you're right there to take care of it.
Yeah, and you're there, but you're also kind of on the pulse of everything that's going on,
Correct.
And making sure that everybody else's needs are met on top of, your own at times.
And you get too involved in the job and knowing everything that you don't have the friends you used to have because you don't have time to go out or you don't have time to travel. And I always said, many of my friends who retired in their 60s, in their late 60s, right now, if they don't have a purpose, I can't relate to them anymore because they don't grow and they're very critical. Our generation, my generation, has to be very careful of how we criticize the younger generation or we're not in touch. And that was such an important thing for me. And I think the asset of having young people around me is everyone needs a mentor. Everyone has to be told, or everyone has to have checks and balances. So you have to have a mentor that you respect, that can criticize you. And when I say criticize, give helpful criticism. And I have maybe one person that can do that. And of course, I have my sister Karen. And Karen and I just share everything because we were left without a mother when we were in our 20s. So we mothered each other, and we can really give each other advice that's hard to take, but it's so respected. So everyone needs a mentor, and you can't think that you could do it alone.
Yeah. I had seen you at an event, and probably the kickoff to our friendship, because you just seem so real and so raw. The MC had asked, do you have any regrets? Do I have any regrets? And you said, I wish I would have tried a little bit harder in my marriage. Tell me why you regret that, or how what you would have done differently, because I think that was really important advice.
And I see that a lot in young girls today. One of the regrets, and looking back, as you said, is when we were married at 18, 19, and in our 20s, you're trying to hold a marriage together in the Woodstock generation. Say no more.
In and of itself, hard. Yeah.
The free love, if you're not with the one you love the one you're with, type
right.
thing. So we were raised in that as a marriage, and I should have made more demands on my children's father to keep the marriage together. And I just looked the other way, or I had a lot of pain in the marriage. And because I felt, of course, I wasn't getting what I needed, but then I blamed myself, and maybe I wasn't deserving of what I needed. And the thing when I reflect back at that time and the woman who I am today, I would have made more demands, and I would have asked for more. And I would have asked more of a relationship in the marriage, working together. However, he strengthened me in many ways, because when he left, I knew I had to take care of everything. And when he left, because I did so much, I didn't feel his absence, other than having the absence of a partner.
Wow.
But I did have, raising children today, and I think all you single parents out there can understand, when there's not a good relationship and you both are separated, there's a lot of fighting going on, and your disagreement on how to raise the children and what's best for them. I didn't have that problem. I did it. I raised them all on my own, and if I failed in any way, I failed because of me and not because of anything. So when he left, I was totally left alone, and I never saw him again, other than the settlement.
Wow.
So that part was good, but it's very lonely too.
But it shaped you.
It shaped me. Absolutely. I found my strength. I couldn't rely on anyone. My home is 1 mile away from a neighbor. So everything I had to do on my own, and how to fix it. And it made me, and working with Bonnie, we found resources as women in the 80s and 90s, how to fix pumps, how to fix drain pipes, things that a lot of women don't even think of. The electrical outlets, how was that run? How was the electric pumped into heat pumps and stuff like that? Water purifying. I mean, things that you don't even think of. And we took that all on. And every time we did, we felt so great about ourselves that we got that done.
You're out and about in the community. You're on the pulse of everything that's going on. You get involved particularly with initiatives that help women personally and professionally to thrive. Why is that so important to you?
I think because I know I was the fortunate and lucky one. When my children's father left, the first thing I did was go to a chamber event at 3rd Street Alliance. And I didn't know anybody. And I went to the Gap and bought an outfit so I'd look good that night because I had no clothes. And I heard little children. And I asked someone, I said, I hear children. And this is the first month being alone. And they said, it's a shelter upstairs. And these little children were talking. I could hear them. And I just said to God, dear Lord, give me all the strength so I never find myself on the 4th floor. And that kept me going. Don't ever think that it's going to be easy. And I kept fighting that I would never be on the fourth floor. So today, I'm hardly going to ever be on the fourth floor, but I want to take care of the women that didn't find the strength or didn't have the resources or the tools to take care of themselves. So I've dedicated, because I think I have a lot to say. I went through a lot, and I love friendships, and every woman has a story. And some of them, you think you might not like these women, but if you find out what you don't like about them, they're in a lot of pain. And my job is to help women have less pain in their life. So I get involved in Bloom, Third Street Alliance, Turning Point, anything that has to do with women's empowerment, and to tell them, encourage them that they could rise above whatever difficulties they have. And it gives me great satisfaction to help women out. Just remember, every time a woman is lifted, you lift all women. And that's when I got that award in 2003 as Top 50 Women in Business. That started women wanting to follow me and be the same. And that's my motto. When we're lifted, stand on my shoulders, because I went through it. Now you take it to the next level.
Sage advice, for sure. Elaine, thanks so much for joining us today. Your story is inspirational, and we all benefit from it. And like I said, I'm so grateful for our friendship.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thanks for being here.